Fantastic. Lucy Powell, welcome. Thanks a lot for contributing to our cities conference. It's great to have you here. Um, Firstly, just a very quick question, because I don't think all of our members will understand the importance of the role of leader of the house. Do you want to just give us a very quick overview of the importance of your role in terms of UK government?
Sure, yeah. Well, obviously, first and foremost, I'm the MP for Manchester Central, which is that's still the most important part of my job. And after the election in July, I was made leader of the House of Commons by the Prime Minister. And that job is sort of twofold, really. One is I'm responsible for all the business that happens in Parliament, to making sure that that sort of goes smoothly, working with the sort of Chief Whip and others on that. So that pipeline of legislation, putting the legislation together, making sure legislation's fit for purpose, that it kind of meets our commitments. So people might remember the King's speech that was given that sort of sets out the government's agenda, legislative agenda for the next 18 months or so. I'm responsible for pulling that together and then for making sure that actually happens, which is a lot more difficult and challenging than it sounds. And then the other part is about, I'm the is about Parliament and the House of Commons and how that works. So looking at sort of standards, culture, best practice, sort of making Parliament and the House of Commons more effective and everything. So I do that because I'm essentially Parliament's representative in government, and I'm the government's representative in Parliament. And that's how it works. So it cuts across a lot of different things, really.
Yeah, it's such a big brief, and I think it's really important for us to have an ally like you when there are so many policies that will go through Parliament which have a big impact on the health of cities. I think what do you see as some of the biggest challenges for cities as you come into government? Some of the things you'd like to see change. It might be climate crisis, it might be challenges around growth, housing, etc. What do you see as those big challenges which we need to solve first?
Well, look, I mean, cities, and I know this sort of firsthand as the MP for Manchester Central, cities are the big drivers of economic growth. The first mission of the Labour government is to drive forward economic growth, and that growth be sort of fairly shared across the country, and growth happen in all parts of the UK economy. And cities are a real driver of that growth, and that from that coming from within a city, then that obviously also supports a much wider economy as well. And we still only have one global city in this country, and that global city, London, happens to be nestled geographically in a kind of small corner of the United Kingdom, and that gives a lot of our regional imbalance. That what creates a lot of the imbalances that we have in our country. So it's really important that we have really strong cities across the United Kingdom, across Great Britain, as real drivers of economic growth. And there's a range of issues that we need to consider, and we do that. Greater Manchester is just a great example of how some of those levers have been pulled more effectively locally, whether that's transport, whether that's economic development plans, and whether that's around skills and making sure we've got the right workforce to meet the demands of the economy, whether that's planning and having that housing need. Here in Greater Manchester, we've really led the way on that sort of strategic approach, and we can go further. And that's why the government is really committed to more and more devolution, because we are really clear that these decisions happen better in local areas, and that's where we can really see the kind of transformatory change that we've seen in Greater Manchester happen.
Yeah, I think that's really important for our industry. When we look at city centre management, business improvement districts, working at that local level, it's that devolution piece that enables us, gives us the power and the influence to do what we need to do at that local level to help cities thrive. And just a quick question as well around how we see investment working in terms of cities going forward. I know there's so many challenges fiscally for the country. Rachel Reeves has already said that we're looking at £5.5 billion of savings for this financial year, about 8.1 billion for the next financial year. how do we start to think about investment in our cities to help with that rebalancing? And also, what's the role for the business community in supporting that investment piece?
Well, it's absolutely critical, the business community, and that's why, business districts, I just think, is so important to create that partnership. We cannot make these changes alone at all, and government plays a small role. Local government and metro mayors play a role, obviously, too, maybe a bigger role. But unless you've got deep rooted and really connected partnership with the private sector and with business, we're not going to see that step change in growth, in investment, in productivity, and all of those things that will lead to people's improved living standards, as well as that economic growth piece. Because growth is only a good thing if it then leads to improved living standards for ordinary people in those places as well. So investment's critical. We've got a big global investment summit coming up as well. And that's vitally important. And there are many actors and international actors as well who are looking at many of our cities outside of London for those big investment opportunities. So we've got to help to unlock that. And I think part of that is, yes, we've got a very difficult fiscal inheritance. There's no question of that. But what many businesses and what many investors say to me is they actually want the policy certainty more than they want the kind of financial subsidy or support. And so that's why the key message from the Chancellor and the Prime Minister has been about that economic stability and that policy stability sort of first, really, because that's where investment can flourish. And it's only with investment from the private sector as well as from the public sector that we'll really be able to raise that productivity piece, which is so important. And again, somewhere like Greater Manchester, when you look at the productivity gains that have been brought over the last 10, 15 years, they've really outstripped those of London and any other place. So we know the model works. It's just really now unlocking that for many other places, and also going further and faster on some of that in Greater Manchester as well. But without those institutions, as well as sort of bilaterally working in partnership with business, we just wouldn't be able to work. And that's definitely been key to Greater Manchester's success.
Absolutely, and I think we couldn't agree with the message more. And I know you're busy. You're gonna have to go, so I'm gonna sort of align under it in a second. But I think certainly when it comes to understanding investment and where that investment money comes from, I know there are many across our industry that see things like business rates reform and changes to local government finance, and also how we evolve the bid model, which we use, can help to drive further investment, which doesn't always put the burden on government. It's other stakeholders like property owners, like businesses, being able to invest in different things to support that growth piece. So certainly I know on behalf of our members, we're really looking forward to working with the Labour government on how we can support that investment in our towns and cities going forward. So yeah, we think that's an absolutely critical piece. So you've definitely
absolutely. And look, we are committed to business rate reform. It's obviously something that's kind of difficult to do, but I'm sure the Chancellor will say more about that in due course at some stage. But really big supporters of the bid initiatives and those going further and faster, in places as well where that can definitely reap dividends. And as I say, I see firsthand how important that is to Manchester and Greater Manchester, and going beyond what they initially were set up to do, and now really massive important part of the jigsaw in pulling everyone together. So I hope you have a great conference, and sorry I can't be there, but we'll be working with you, and I get very effectively lobbied whenever there's sort of government policy decisions or whatever by Cityco and others, and I'm sure I'll continue to be so. So keep my feet to the fire on it as well, and keep the whole government's feet to the fire on it.
That's fantastic. Lucy Powell, thank you very much.